Hey everyone, we are in the middle of a series called Church Redefined, where we're taking a look at what the church was always meant to be and learning how we can help embody that at Mosaic. It's been a great series. We're excited to continue it, but first we want to connect. So head to mosaicchristian.org right now and let us know how we can be praying for you in this time. Let's get into the sermon.
I want to start off today by reading an email that I got from one of you about a month ago. It goes like this. Hey, Carl, I'm just checking on you. I was at the 9 a.m. service yesterday, and your sermon delivery was the worst I've ever seen from you. That's just the start. You stuttered, you lost your place, you read words incorrectly, you said several times, which I don't ever remember hearing you say in a previous sermon. This is all unusual. I'm in a Thursday morning group, and one of the things that often comes up in discussion is that you and John are very good communicators. More than one person comments on how you speak clearly, quickly, and rarely stutter or say Did you have less time to prepare? Are you fatigued still from being ill? Are there issues in the background that are weighing you down more than usual? Are there new issues weighing you down? Love you too. What do you do when you get discouraged? What do you do when you're the coach and somebody says this loss was the coach's fault? What do you do when you hear you messed up the project? We offered the job to somebody else. I think we should start seeing other people. I'm going to another church. The divorce is your fault. We all get discouraged, don't we? In fact, I was recently learning from Pastor Rick Warren, and he said there are 4 reasons we get discouraged. I thought these were so good that I wanted to start today by sharing this list. Discouragement happens first when you're halfway through something. If you're climbing a mountain, when you're halfway up is the discouragement point because, you've gone far, but you look up and you have so far to go. This is when you're halfway into a dating relationship and you think, I thought I'd know by now if this person was the one, but I'm not sure. He hasn't proposed. I'm not sure if I want him to. Maybe we should give up on the whole deal. This is when you're painting your house and you're halfway through. And you look at the progress, but you think, I've got so far to go, then I've got to clean up after that. And this causes fatigue. You're just over it. Have you ever started to clean out your garage or the basement, and it's just a disaster, and when you get halfway through, you want to quit? You think, that's good enough. This is going to take forever. I don't even know where I'm going to put all this crap. And it's discouraging. Another thing that causes discouragement is when something's more complicated than I expected. Here's the thing I thought of with this. We've all seen those home remodeling TV shows, or most of us have watched one of those things on YouTube where somebody does a home project, and they make it look so simple and easy on YouTube, don't they? But if you've ever tried to tackle one of those things, inevitably something happens that wasn't on the dang TV show. Or that wasn't on the YouTube video that somebody else made, and you think, I just don't know what to do at this point, and this causes frustration. I don't want that responsibility, but I can't dodge it. You're frustrated because you think, I bet somebody more capable would be able to figure this out right now. Another source of discouragement is when I start to doubt my own ability. And a lot of the time, this is the critic in your head. Somebody else could do it better. Poor me. I'm an idiot. I can't do anything right. This is the chatterbox going crazy. It's the voices in your head. It's the lies from your past. And this causes a sense of failure because something draws out the inner critic and you think, maybe I should just quit. Maybe they'd be better off with somebody else as their parent or coaching or in charge. Sometimes this one is when you internalize someone else's failures as your own, right? So parents do this. You thought you raised a good kid, but then your 16-year-old rebels and you think, maybe I just am a horrible parent. And bosses do this, right? When you think you equip a team to really nail the project or presentation, but then they completely fall on their face and you think, what did I do to set them up for failure? Or friends do this, right? Another friend has a failing in their life and you think, what did I do or not do? Or how could I have helped them out? How was I a bad friend that led to this? And you doubt your own ability. And because of what somebody else did or the voices in your head, you're discouraged. Last one. Another source of discouragement is when the opposition grows stronger. So the last one was the internal critic. This is the external critic. And here's the thing. If you aren't making a difference, you're not going to have any critics. But as soon as you start to change things, people will voice opposition to what you're doing. They will become convicted of what they're not doing, or they just don't want to go where you're going, so they will criticize you. Why are you trying to improve your marriage? It's fine. Why do you want to grow closer to Jesus? Your life's fine. Why are you trying to kill that addiction? You should keep joining us in that. And they'll nag, they'll try to get you to cut corners, they'll hold you back. And what this causes is fear. And what fear sounds like is what if? What if I lose that friend? What if they're right and this is a wrong decision? What if I fail at what I'm trying to do and all the critics are right? So what I want you to do right now is I want you to think of something in your life, one thing where you face discouragement right now. Go. Okay? Now, I want you to look at this list and think, which of these reasons is the cause of this discouragement? It's probably pretty easy to figure out. For me, the discouragement I'm facing in my life is probably equal parts the third and fourth one here. Doubt my own ability and opposition growing stronger. And that's causing me discouragement. And here's the thing. The world is a place of discouragement, but the church is a place of encouragement. The church is a community that speaks truth and love. The church is a place of hope, a place of truth, and a place of grace. And the Apostle Paul, who lived 2,000 years ago, knew this. As a church right now, we're studying his letter that we call in the Bible 1 Thessalonians. And in chapter 2, there's a section where he communicates encouragement that we need to learn from. And the reality is, I don't have to spend a long time saying, we all get discouraged. We know that. What we need is to figure out, okay, that's where we live, so how do we get encouraged? How do we encourage each other? If the church is a place of encouragement, what does that look like? So I want to show you from the Apostle Paul what encouragement is. And the goal today is that you will leave equipped to encourage the hurting, discouraged people around you. And you may say, well, Carl, I'm the one sitting here who needs encouragement. Great. I'm going to equip everyone around you to encourage the hurting people around them today. But what you need to recognize is that you're not the only one who needs encouragement. The people around you do as well. So I want you to lean in because they need you as well. So I want you to take out your Mosaic moleskin or your phone, whichever it is that you take notes on, because this is important stuff for us to be the body of Christ. And here's the thing. If we just want to play church, today doesn't matter. But if we believe that the church is a place that gives life, if we believe that the church is a community that builds up, if we truly believe the church is a safe place for the hurting and broken, and church is a place of unwavering grace and unflinching truth, if we actually believe that the church is the beautiful bride of Christ, if we believe church is our home that we are going to be with forever, then we've got to get this right or we will always fall short. Because in a way, everything we do as a church hinges on what we're going to talk about today. Because we all get discouraged. And if we stay in that place of discouragement, what will inevitably happen is one by one we will drop like flies because we will give up. But if those around us encourage us to keep going, then we will conquer the addiction, and we will endure the death, and we will get through the suffering, and we will rebuild the marriage, and we will get out of debt. And because of the people around us building us up through the power of Christ in love, with hope and grace and truth, we will be able to say, I fought the good fight, I have finished the race, I have kept the faith. So if that's not what you want today, then don't take notes, don't pay attention, play on your phone for the next 20 minutes. But if you want to be part of a community that builds other people up, that when you get to the end of the race, you can look to your left and to your right and say, these people got me here, then that's what we're going to talk about today. All right? Now, let's dig in. 1 Thessalonians 2, verse 7. As apostles of Christ, Paul says, we certainly had a right to make some demands of you, but instead we were like children among you, or we were like a mother feeding and caring for her own children. We loved you so much that we shared with you not only God's good news, but our lives too. He's saying, we treated you with the tender compassion that a mom has for her kids. Now here's what I know, kinda. It's tough to be a mom. Like I was talking with somebody about this idea this week. They sent me some memes that they thought all the moms would get. They said, when your kids take up all the space in your bed, even though there should be plenty of space for you both. Go back to that real quick. There's room for him on here. Can we just be clear? Okay, go to the next one. When you finally get a night out and realize your entire wardrobe went out of style when you were busy raising babies. Motherhood is being the snack holder for children no matter how fabulous you look. This is pure gold right there. All right, go back to the verse. It says we were like a mother feeding and caring for her own children. Let me kind of help this make sense for us. In the soul work I do with men in this church and really around the country, one thing we talk a lot about is you can tell the work you need to do when a situation arises and your energy does not match the energy of the situation, right? So we've all seen this, we've experienced this, where something frustrating happens and it should elicit like a response of a 3, right? But your response is a 7, right? It's like, dude, all they did is said they wouldn't return the thing that cost you $3.99. I think it's going to be okay. And you're blowing up. And so what we talk about in this soul work is that gap between the 3 and the 7 is the work that you have to do. And what we really talk about, and I mean, if you spend time in therapy, you kind of get into the same thing there, is that gap most of the time goes back to something from when you were raised as a kid. And it was a time when you were scared or where you were angry and you developed this defense mechanism of some sort to deal with other people's sin that was affecting you. But if you don't deal with that, then it comes out sideways in future ways. So you're just trying to return something at Target and you're blowing up and the 16-year-old cashier is like, dude, I'll just give you $3 if that'll make it better. And so what Paul's saying is the same thing. He's saying, look, when you blow up, it's not about the thing. It's about the little kid inside you. So he says, when we encountered you, we were like a mother feeding and caring for her own children. We approached you as people who had brokenness out of fear and genuine pain that we could deal with. And so the first ingredient of encouragement, Paul teaches us, is compassion. And here's why I say that, because Paul's saying, hey, I'm not going to judge you on like what I see. I'm going to judge you on the pain that you've come from. And when we encourage other people, it can't start with, here's the truth. It can't start with, here's why you're wrong. It has to start with me trying to see you as a broken, hurting person. And out of that, it will elicit a response of compassion through which I can genuinely help you. Because I'm not going to judge you on the 7 response. I'm going to judge you on the gap that stems from pain. Just not if this is making sense and you're tracking with me. Okay. And so what this means is in your marriage, when you have a marriage fight and he puffs his chest out, you don't get mad that he's arrogant. You see him as an 8-year-old who was scared by his parents' divorce. And when your wife confesses again that she's addicted to porn, you don't see her as sick. You see her as this wounded teenager who gave sex to every man she could because that was the only acceptance she ever experienced from a man, and that's just an elicited response anytime she needs to feel accepted, and you feel compassion. This means when your teenager cops an attitude, as they get older, you don't see them as some arrogant young adult. You see them as a lonely child, and it changes the interaction. Encouragement must start with compassion. Encouragement can't start with anything else, or it won't result in true encouragement. And here's another reason this matters, is because when it starts with compassion, true encouragement is about the other person, not about me. Like, if it's not out of compassion, sometimes I'll actually try to encourage someone, but I'm really just wanting to elicit a particular response to make me feel good for having encouraged them. But if it originates with compassion, then it's not really about me, and so how they respond doesn't even really matter because, hey, I'm just compassionate for you, I'm going to try and encourage you, and like, however you receive it is fine. I'm going to go on, but I just want you to know I care. And this is what Jesus did. Matthew 9, it says, when he saw the crowds, he had compassion on them. I love this, because they're confused and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. They're just lost. Next verse 9. Don't you remember, Paul says, dear brothers and sisters, how hard we worked among you? Night and day we toiled to earn a living so that we would not be a burden to any of you as we preach God's good news to you. Now, here's what's going on here, a little context. Is this church was so young and so small and undeveloped that they did not have enough offerings that could support paying a preacher. I mean, in church plant world, I hear of this often, where a church planter has to raise money. And so Paul hadn't raised money for this church plant. What he did is he said, I'm going to work full-time as a preacher, and I'm going to work full-time doing another job because I see your situation. You have so little money. There are not good offerings coming in the church yet, so I'm going to work a full-time job in addition so that I can preach the gospel without burden to you, and therefore you can get what you need and just focus on growing in Christ. So what I want you to see is he was perceptive. Encouragement is perceptive. Now, some of having perception is having been there. Mentioned church planting. When I'm around church planters, I understand how they think because I've been there. I was on the phone last week with the church planter Mosaic supports in Long Island, and he was peppering me with questions. How do you gain momentum when your church has 150 people? How do you lead a staff of 3 people? How do you handle, this kind of stuff with facilities? And I got it because I've been there. Some of perception is training, right? A bunch of you done things like learn about love languages or study the Enneagram or the Myers-Briggs test or the Strengths Finder, and all of those are really helpful, healthy tools because you can gain perception on people to understand what's going on, and then you're enabled to encourage them. Some of perception, maybe even a lot of it, is just being sensitive to God's Spirit. Paul says this in another letter, pray in the Spirit at all times and on every occasion, stay alert and be persistent in your prayers for all believers everywhere. If you are praying for other believers, it's just going to happen where you encourage them. In fact, this is what a guy in our church named Ray Decker does. Back when COVID, lockdowns, all that started, about a year ago, he tried to figure out how can I still love people well during this? And so he texted me one day, and he said, hey, good morning. Just want to check in and see how everyone's holding up, our supplies holding out, and sanity. And so I replied, we're out of paper towels and nearly out of sanity, but we're good. Thanks for checking in. I appreciate it. Overall, we're good. It could be worse. And then a few days later, our doorbell rang, and I looked outside, and Ray's running back to his car. He waved, and he had left some paper towels on our front porch. And I thought, that's pretty good. And so I thought, that's great. So I texted him, thanks for the paper towels. We also need a new van. Jesus said, you don't have because you don't ask. And so he replied, nice try. But Ray has developed in the last year this ongoing habit of asking me, hey, what can I pray for you today? And it just so happens it's come up at real opportune times where I genuinely had specific prayer requests for him. One day I was getting ready to walk into a funeral, and he texted me that. One day I was stuck writing a sermon, and he texted me that. One day I was just having a bad day, and he texted me that. And then I realized as I was talking to people about Ray that he wasn't doing this just because I was the preacher, there were dozens, and my guess is maybe even hundreds of people in this church that he's doing that for, because, put the Ephesians verse back up if you can, because he was praying in the Spirit at all times for all believers. And when you do that, you can't help but have that overflow in encouragement. Look at the next verse, verse 10. You yourselves are witnesses, and so is God, that we were devout and honest and faultless toward all of you believers. And here's what he's saying, is if in your life there are lies or deceit or manipulation or even sarcasm or exaggeration, that taints your encouragement. If any of those things come out, that's a lens through which people view the encouragement you've given them, and it lessens the impact of it. So write this down. Here's the next lesson Paul's teaching us. Is another ingredient of encouragement is that you're honest. That's it. John hit on this when he talked about people pleasing 2 weeks ago, right? He said, quote, flattery will bury your integrity and destroy your relationships. And he's absolutely right. Now, you know that I'm someone who speaks truth even if it's brutal. Sometimes truth hurts. So there's some truth I need to speak, and it has to do with John. Goes back a few months. We had some debates on videos, if you remember, and we were competing to get lunch brought to us, and I'll just show you the clip.
I want to plead with you as a man of the people who has no one to bring me lunch. Why would you support the oppressive 1% of lunch eaters when you can empower me to experience lunch in a whole new way? And here's my promise to you. If I win, I will share that lunch with someone every single day of the week. One of you will come join me every single day of the week over that meal to celebrate our victory together. Thank you. Thank you to everyone who threw this together, and good night.
Now, freeze that for a second, because truth hurts, but John never shared his meals. And I think this was his quote, flattery will bury your integrity and destroy your relationships. So I don't know if you want to still be friends with John, but I saw him eat all the Wendy's. That's all I'm saying. You can take it down now. Love you, buddy. I've been waiting so long to show that clip. Encouragement. In all seriousness, I want to quote John because he said, the cure is to be specific in both your encouragement and criticism. And here's what's true, is some of us have trained ourselves to be cynical. And others of us have trained ourselves in flattery. But both are dishonest. The cynic isn't being honest about the value people bring. The flatterer isn't being honest about struggles. One's a jerk and one's meaningless. In fact, it made me think of a story a preacher buddy of mine, mentor, told me years ago that he had just got done preaching at this event, and the guy who was in charge of all the worship was standing there talking to him after the event was over when a woman walked up who had sung a song on stage at this church for the event, and the worship guy said to her, "Man, that was amazing. Thank you so much. That was awesome." And she walked away, and the whole time she was being encouraged. My mentor thought, "Man, I guess I don't know music because I thought that was terrible." But when she walked away, the guy turned to him and said, "Man, that was terrible, wasn't it?" And my buddy realized, man, this guy doesn't mean anything he says. And so they had a couple more minutes of small talk, and then the guy said, "Hey, I got to run, but man, your sermon was awesome." And then he jetted out. My buddy was like, "What?" And Paul says, if you want to be an encourager, be honest. Empty encouragement's flattery, false encouragement is lying. And this is so tough because being honest isn't common. If you are maybe with family at a big meal that someone has spent hours preparing and it doesn't turn out well, you know what most people say to the cook? Hey, this is so good. But you know what the true encourager says? Hey, thanks for spending so much time cooking. You know what the cook thinks? Oh, they think it was terrible. And it's hard to say. But then the next time everybody's together and the meal turns out great and everybody says, oh, this tastes so good, you know who the cook's actually going to believe? You. Because you're honest. If you want to be a true encourager, you must be honest all the time. Look at the next verse, verse 11. And you know that we treated each of you as a father treats his own children. And here's what this means. It means you're always on. I think dads of little kids can relate to this probably, because if I get home at the end of a long day of work where, maybe it was even a good day, but I'm just tired, you know what I want to do? Sit on the couch and have nobody talk to me and do nothing. But you know what happens when I get home? I get attacked, like literally, because my boys just want to wrestle. And they will jump on me, they will kick me, they will pull me, they will give me noogies, they will do something to physically attack me. And Dad, we need to wrestle. Dad, we got to throw football. Dad, let's watch our show. Dad, I need help with homework. It never stops. Being a dad, you're always on. And that's a good thing. So Paul draws the analogy, next lesson, he says encouragement is persistent. It doesn't stop. A mature Christian encourages when they don't feel like it. Healthy encouragement is continual. And you know what? It's easy to encourage someone for the big things. You know what I mean? Like if somebody gets the promotion or somebody makes straight A's or when they have the baby or when they graduate, it's easy to encourage them, isn't it? But you know what? When I make straight A's isn't when I need encouragement. When I need encouragement is when I'm struggling to get a C. That's when I need encouragement. So I need encouragers who are persistent. I read that email to you at the beginning of the message. It said, hey, Carl, checking on you. Your sermon delivery was the worst I've ever seen. You stuttered, lost your place, all that stuff. Here's what never occurred to me when I got that email, actually. It never occurred to me, who's that guy to criticize me? Doesn't he know I work so hard? I'd like to see him get up and do a sermon. Because that's from a friend of mine named John Luke. And John Luke is a persistent encourager. So I knew he had seen something and picked up on something that was true, and because he's an encourager, he wrote me out of compassion. So I wrote him back. I said, thanks for checking in. I was coming off COVID. I didn't realize how tired I was. When I woke up that morning, I felt like I could have slept 4 more hours. My pages, I was just losing place in my notes, couldn't even pronounce words right. Thanks for checking on me. And I wasn't offended in the least because he sends me regular emails and texts to encourage me, and that specific email ended with this. Carl, you don't owe me any answers. I wanted to just let you know I'm concerned about you. You're a great preacher who's helped me a lot. You're in my heart. If you bounce back and crush every sermon from here on out, you'll be in my heart. If you completely fall apart and can't preach and the church folds and you end up homeless or in a mental institution, he says, if you end up in a mental institution, you will have my heart. I love you, Carl. I want to see you win in life. I want to help you any way I can. You're a good man. Love, John Luke. That's a persistent encourager. And it reminds me of what Paul says elsewhere. Let's not get tired doing what's good. Right time, we'll reap the harvest of it if we don't give up. So whenever we have the opportunity, we should do good to everyone, especially to those in the family of faith. So we're talking about encouragement. I have homework for you. It's simply this. I want you to encourage someone every day this week. And I was going to tell you that and say, go home and do it, maybe set a reminder on your phone, but I just think we need to do it right now. So I want you to take out your phone. Everybody take it out. Crowd participation time, watching online, take out your phone. If you're watching on your phone, pause your phone and do this once I explain it. I want you to encourage somebody right now through text or email. I'm going to participate. We'll give you less than 60 seconds. I'm going to text some guys, say, I really value your wisdom in my life. It is really helping me these days. Thank you Love you guys. Send. All right. Do that every day this week. Now, we could end there. I think that'd be a helpful message. But there's one more thing in the scripture that we really got to lean into. And I kind of summarized, go ahead and show the next verse. I tried to summarize it here, a bunch of verses to make it clear. Paul says, we pleaded with you, Thessalonians. We encouraged you, we urged you to live your lives in a way that God would consider worthy. Okay, so that's what we did for you. And then, dear brothers and sisters, you suffer persecution. And then after that, some of the Jews have persecuted us too. So catch this. Here's what he's saying. We encouraged you. You were persecuted. That encouraged us. And then we were persecuted. He is saying we were all persecuted, but us, who were the original encouragers, seeing you endure persecution, encouraged us so we could endure persecution. Encouragement is a cycle. And when the encouraged receives encouragement well, it encourages the encourager. Let me say that again. When the encouraged receives encouragement well, it encourages the encourager. Have you ever told someone out of a genuine place a compliment about something, maybe the music they produced or the way they interacted with someone? They say, man, that was so amazing. And they write it off and say, oh, no, that was terrible. What happens to you? You feel like an idiot. And you think, well, I better not encourage them anymore. But what happens when they receive it well and say, oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. What does that do? That makes you want to encourage them even more, doesn't it? And here's the point. Receive encouragement well. Jesus says it's more blessed to give than receive, but it does mean somebody's got to be on the receiving end. And this means don't put down the encourager. It even means, think about this, sometimes you need to ask for encouragement. A friend of mine at another church got this letter that was so good I wanted to read it to you. The woman wrote, Dear Bob, I attended and was active at our church for a year and a half before I let anyone at church know I was hurting, struggling with my faith, and crumbling under the pressure of maintaining a mask of spirituality I'd put on around my Christian friends. Soon I discovered that the energy needed to maintain my mask was gone. Finally, I hit rock bottom. I was forced to face the fact that I needed to enter a treatment facility for substance abuse. I decided to risk asking for help and encouragement from my small group and serving team. I told them of my problems and asked for their prayers. Everyone was surprised. No one knew I was hurting. My honesty with them about my chemical addictions opened me up to the possibility of two things: their judgment or their acceptance. I hoped for the second, but feeling badly about myself, I expected the first. But I was surprised. While at the treatment center, I received almost 300 cards and letters from members of our church. They heard of my situation and wrote to say they cared and were praying for me. In the acceptance and love that came from their encouragement, I began to understand the love Jesus has for me as his child. I no longer saw him as disapproving, critical, anxious for me to get it right. I saw his love for me as a person apart from my performance come shining through his church, and it touched my heart in a healing way. You see, I wanted God to heal me without anyone ever knowing the struggles I was going through. But though he could have done that, he knew that I needed to see him in his church. That I needed to learn to reach out to other believers and ask for their encouragement. She ended, in this church I met Jesus, but I had to be willing to be honest and admit I needed encouragement. No one knows while you keep a mask that you need help. We're talking about encouragement. Here's what's true. You can wear a mask and face your struggles alone, and you will not be encouraged. Or, in the church, you can ask for encouragement, and you'll receive it. Stephen Brown said there are two kinds of people in the world: sinners who know they need God and sinners who don't know they need God. And the first kind is found in the church. A man named John Bell used to be president of the Special Olympics, and he tells a story of one particular 100-meter race that was full of young athletes, and when the gun started the race, they started sprinting with arms and legs flying everywhere. But he says 15 meters into the race, one of them stumbled and fell. But instead of keep going, the other 7 contestants all stopped. They turned back, bent down, picked up the person, wiped them off, made sure their scrapes were okay, and then arm in arm, all 8 crossed the finish line together. And a cynic will look at the Special Olympics and say, I'm more intelligent than those people. But a wise person will look at the Special Olympics and say, they're more wise than I am. The Christian life is hard. And so we can't just run our race. We have to look for those who've fallen. And we have to bend down, pick them up, dust them off, and say, I'm going to link arms with you and go with you to the end. I had you encourage someone a moment ago, and I think that was easy. I want to flip the script right now. I want you to take out your phone again. And I want you to ask somebody for encouragement. This is a little harder, isn't it? I'm going to say, I feel so full of shame right now. Please keep praying for me. And I'm going to send that to some people who've already been encouraging me. Some of you don't have anybody to text right now who's a Christian. And if that's you, we want you to please go to the black tent after this service, because we want to introduce you to some Christians who would love to link arms with you. Because the world is discouraging, but the church is encouraging. And here's why. Because Jesus did not come into the world to condemn the world, but to save the world through him. We fell. And he could have gone on without us. But he stooped down to earth and he picked us up. And he said, I'll do what it takes to get you to the finish line of eternity, pure and holy through my grace, even if it results in my death, which it did. And if you have not accepted Jesus, he is the ultimate encourager, because he doesn't just say he loves you, he shows it. And we believe him because he rose from the grave. So Mosaic, here's my challenge. Is the people sitting next to you need you to encourage them. We need encouragement. So let's be that church. Because we'll all face times where we want to give up on various things, if not everything. And we need people to help us finish the race and keep the faith and fight the good fight. Let's pray. God, I'm thankful for this passage of Scripture, because it kind of took me a while to understand it, but I just think it's absolutely essential. If the church is going to get redefined as a place of encouragement, God, help us encourage somebody every day this week so that this church can be a place of encouragement. Thank you for being the ultimate encourager who never leaves us. We love you, Jesus. Amen.
If you are interested in having a conversation about what it would mean to commit your life to Jesus and get baptized, head to mosaicchristian.org/connect. Check that baptism box, and we'll reach out to you this week to have that conversation. We love you. We'll see you next time.